Trump loves Bitcoiners. He knows that they're wealthy. He knows that they're smart. And what he does know is that they are passionate. Not only does that mean votes, but it also means prosperity for America when you're the president.
Ran Neuner, entrepreneur, crypto expert, and host of Crypto Banter.
You were at Bitcoin Nashville, and you left saying that you realized you weren't bullish enough on Bitcoin.
Let's just look at how far we've come. Last year, we had the mayor of Miami, and here we are 2 years later. We have a Bitcoin ETF approved. We have an ETH ETF approved. Kathy Wood, Cynthia Loomis, a presidential candidate completely embracing Bitcoin. When you zoom out, the rate of change in adoption of this asset is exponential. All too often, we make the mistake of looking at Bitcoin in a very short time frame.
Do you think the Democrats have any chance of coming around to crypto?
There's no incentive for them to come around. If you vote for the Democrats and you vote for Kamala Harris, you are voting for 4 more years of Gary Gensler and Elizabeth Warren.
Tell me about those dark Luna days and things that people should learn.
One token ecosystem was over 60% of my portfolio. It went to 0 in 4 days. Learn the importance of diversification. And I can tell you that what matters is not what your valuation is on paper. What matters is what you can materialize out of that valuation. That's one of the biggest lessons that I ever learned.
I remember you saying that you had walked around the office and people wouldn't make eye contact with you. They knew things were so bad.
The biggest test for you is what happens to you under the worst kind of pressure. I had a decision to make. Either I could have tapped out and said, I'm out of crypto, I hate this place, or I could do the exact opposite. I could get up and I could fight back and build a better business with honesty, transparency, integrity, doing something that I love every single day. And the outcome of that is building the most profitable community in the world. That's the formula.
Hey, I know investing in crypto is scary. It takes a real leap of faith because there are so many scams, rug pulls, and bad actors out there. It's a dangerous business, which is why 95% of people lose all their money. Well, that's why I created the London Real Investment Club, so you can access the hottest deals on the planet and use the crypto bull market to create the generational wealth that you deserve. Join my team of over 100 people from around the world that are making millions of dollars behind the scenes investing in blockchain, AI, Web3 games, DeFi, Bitcoin, and more. Don't miss out. Click the link below to book a call with one of my team now. But hurry, this bull market will end soon.
I know investing in crypto can be scary. That's why you gotta join the investment club. Pull the trigger. Let's do this.
The world is changing. Inspiration is everywhere. It has never been so easy to connect, share, and bring people together. We're learning from others and finding the best in ourselves. Challenging our beliefs. Sharing our vulnerability. Overcoming our fears. Transforming ourselves so we can transform the world. How far can we go?
This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is... This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is Ran Neuner, the entrepreneur, broadcaster, and blockchain expert. You are the co-founder and CEO of Onchain Capital, the blockchain investment fund and advisory service. You previously built and sold the biggest marketing company in Africa at a deal valued at over $150 million. In 2017, you created and hosted Crypto Trader on CNBC, the world's first televised crypto show. Then in 2020, you founded Crypto Banter, the popular live streaming platform dedicated to producing cryptocurrency and blockchain news 24/7 to a global community. You believe the immediate future of Bitcoin and crypto depends on who wins the US election, but you have said you'll be extremely disappointed if Bitcoin doesn't reach $150,000 by the first quarter of 2025. Ran, welcome to London Real.
And you, sir, have done your homework, because you've really dug deep and you've done the homework. I'll give you that much.
Dude, you've got quite a history, which I'd love to get to a little bit later. But now I'd love to jump into it. You were at Bitcoin Nashville, and you left saying that you realized you weren't bullish enough on Bitcoin. And I thought that was pretty interesting coming from a guy like you who's been in the market for such a long time. I know you sat down with Mark Yusko, with Max Kaiser. Kaiser was on my show in 2013. That's when I bought my first Bitcoin. I was on his show in London. He no longer talks to me because I talk about altcoins, but that's another story. But like, what was it like being there, Rand? And with Trump speaking and Senator Loomis proposing that bill and Bobby Kennedy, who's been on our show, speaking, like, what was the vibe and why did you feel more bullish when you left?
So, I think all too often we make the mistake of looking at Bitcoin in a very short time frame. And like now we've been looking at Bitcoin and, for 173 days, Bitcoin has moved sideways and down, and it just hasn't been the nicest 173 days in crypto. But when you zoom out, and I've been going to the Bitcoin conference, I think since 2019 or when it started in San Francisco. And I remember the room that I was in 2019 in San Francisco. And then I remember all the subsequent events, the Miami event, et cetera, et cetera. And, I kind of zoomed out and I thought to myself, let's just look at how far we've come. So if you look at was it last year or the year before, where we had the mayor of Miami, Francis Suarez, standing next to the bull. And that was the highlight of the event, I'll remind you, right? Fast forward to a year or two later, and I'm getting my years confused because I've been to so many of these things, but fast forward a year or two later, two presidential candidates, BlackRock talking at an event, Cathie Wood, Cynthia Loomis. I'm like, hold on a second. Maybe we're looking at this thing with like blinders on, with blinkers on, and we are looking at it in the wrong time frame. If you just look back at the progress that we've made since, I'm going to go back to 2019, but that's quite brave. Let's just even go back 2 years and look at the exponential. 2 years ago, the ETF wasn't even a discussion. It was like, there's no chance we're getting an ETF. All the ETFs for the previous 11 years had been declined by the SEC. And here we are 2 years later. We have a Bitcoin ETF approved. We have an ETH ETF approved. We have a presidential candidate who is most likely to win, completely embracing Bitcoin and Bitcoiners. And you have another presidential candidate who's coming third in the race, speaking about it. You have BlackRock on stage. You have Cathie Wood on stage. I'm like, hold on a second. Actually, when you zoom out, the rate of change in adoption of this asset is exponential. And I think a lot of people are just getting stuck on the sideways, choppy movement that we're having in one period of time, which is, the last 180 days or whatever it is.
Yeah, even 2 years ago, the conference wasn't too far after or right before maybe FTX was happening. It was the lowest of the low at the time. Like you said, the ETF wasn't even in the conversation. And now you got Trump speaking, saying twice, I'm going to fire Gary Gensler. And Trump said verbatim, don't sell your Bitcoin, didn't he? It was crazy, the stuff that was coming out.
Look, I don't know if Trump likes Bitcoin, but I know Trump likes Bitcoiners. So I don't know if he really gives a shit about Bitcoin, but he knows that Bitcoiners are the right people to be surrounded with. He knows that they're wealthy. He knows that they're smart. And what he does know is that they are passionate. And not only does that mean votes, but it also means that it means prosperity for America when you're the president, right? And so I think that Trump loves Bitcoiners. And to me, the most encouraging thing is, remember in Bitcoin Nashville, Trump was leading the polls because I think it was still Biden in the race. If I'm not mistaken, I don't think it was that pivoted to Kamala Harris yet. And so he got a huge acceleration in the polls, a lot of it backed by this Bitcoin stance of his, right?
Yeah, very much so. I ran for office here to be mayor of London twice, once in 21, once in 24. It was my only interaction with politics. I never studied it in school, but I realized quickly politicians care about two things, money and votes. That's what they care about. And so they care about an issue, like you said, that embodies passion and that also has potential money and funds involved. And I think Trump seized on that. And you can argue left and right whether he really cares about crypto or not, but I'll take it over the stance of the current administration and then the last 4 years. And I think he'll follow through. We also see J.D. Vance, 39 years old. Rumor is he's got some big fat bags of altcoins. He's got $250,000 of Bitcoin. And now his transition team, who's the guy from Cantor Fitzgerald, who's been, I think, working on the Tether coin for a long time. There's a lot of signs that he will not only just talk the talk, but also walk the walk if he gets elected.
Yeah, I mean, I think the vice president is not really important in the big scheme of things. People vote for the president. I think, this whole thing about president, vice president, JD Vance, I think, is less relevant. I think this is right now a race between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. Surprisingly, Kamala Harris is ahead in the polls, which is like extremely surprising to me. But, maybe it's only surprising to me because I live in an echo chamber, and my echo chamber is crypto people, and crypto people generally hate the left wing. Seems to me, though, that the average American doesn't really hate the left wing because most of the polls actually show that Kamala Harris may win. That said, Kamala Harris hasn't started campaigning yet. So, like, what you're seeing is she's ahead in the polls, but she hasn't opened her mouth yet, and she opened her mouth this weekend for the first time. Around an economic policy, and that backfired, and the odds went against her. So I think, as with all American elections, they're all very, very, very close, and they all come down to the wire. That is an American election, and I think, to be honest, that anything that we look at between now and elections doesn't really matter. I think what matters is the night of the elections. We know this. We know this in US politics. So I've kind of taken the stance of chill, like let the cards fall as they may, because actually the only thing that matters is the results on the last day.
Yeah, I know Polymarket went from having Trump at like 70%, and now it's back to 50-50 or below. Now, some people say that might have been moved that way because the people are cutting their losses. Other people say polls are all biased and left-leaning. But you're right. She's still favoring. She's come out with a great media strategy. Couple of hiccups. Now they got the convention in Chicago. There's going to be some crazy riots and demonstrations. She's going to have to open her mouth more. So we'll see. But you're right. We got 70 some days, 78 days or something like that. So you're right. It won't matter till the day of. And then it's only going to matter for 5 states. That's it. So
exactly, and that's why I've learned that it's a futile exercise to be calling US elections specifically 3 months before the elections. There's so much. I mean, I'm going to remind you that Hillary Clinton was polled to beat Donald Trump the night before the election, and it was like, I don't remember the exact polls, but it was crazy in Hillary's favor, and here we are. So that's I think. The reality is just forget about what the polls are saying, listen to what the people are saying, and then let's see what happens closer to the time in terms of whether Kamala what Kamala's policies actually look like relative to what the US people actually want.
Now, you've said you think she could sack Gary Gensler before the election. Can you go deeper on that?
No. I don't think she can. I think she should if she wants to if she really wants the crypto vote. Then what she should do is put her money where her mouth is and be a person of action. Now, she's a vice president. She could influence people by saying, look, we realize that we've been so bad on crypto, and so we got rid of Gary Gensler. Because otherwise, the reality is no matter what she says, no one's going to believe her. Like, Brian, if she turned around and said, now I'm becoming pro-crypto and I think Bitcoin people should have a chance, and I mean, what would you think? Would you believe that she's actually now changed her tune and is pro-crypto?
No. The actions have been terrible.
What would get you to believe it?
Yeah, that would do it. But I doubt she could get that done, getting him sacked. But that would get me. I just wonder if it's on her radar of all the things she's trying to juggle in her brain. It should be, but I'm just wondering if it is.
About crypto, because I don't think she cares about crypto at all. I think she's going to realize very quickly that she can't win the crypto vote. And I think what they're going to do is they're going to focus on all the other places where they can win votes. And I think they realize more and more that, number one, you can't win crypto. Number two, I think crypto people know that if Kamala Harris wins, it means 4 more years of Gary Gensler. It means 4 more years of Elizabeth Warren. Elizabeth Warren's very, very, very influential on the inside. Everyone knows that. And so I think if you vote for the Democrats and you vote for Kamala Harris, you're voting for 4 more years of Gary Gensler and Elizabeth Warren. Also, what I'm struggling with, and again, maybe it's because I live in an echo chamber, but America is the land of the free. America is the land of opportunity. America is the opposite of old Soviet Russia, which was seen as socialist, right? America is supposed to be the opposite of China, which is seen as a communist / socialist country. And yet people in America are starting to vote more towards left-wing, almost socialist policies. It baffles my mind. It baffles my mind that this is the way that the US people are voting. But again, maybe that's the way that I'm seeing it because I live in an echo chamber, and my forces of influence are crypto Twitter friends, all right-leaning friends. You know what I mean? So I think let's have a closer look closer to time based on policies, and I think, if Kamala comes in, we've got 4, maybe 8 more years of swimming upstream. That's just what it is. I'm hoping that Trump will come in. I'm hoping that Trump will come in. Not because I particularly like Trump. I just like Trump's policies more than I like Kamala's policies, specifically for the industry that I'm in.
Do you think the Democrats have any chance of coming around? Or do you think with Warren in the background, it's really just going to go one way if they get reelected? I'll tell you what I think, but do you think there's any chance? There was probably Democrats there at the Bitcoin conference and a few that would tell you different.
Do I think the Democrats can come around? No. I think there's no incentive for them to come around. I think that when I deal with Trump, I know I'm dealing with Trump. When I deal with the Democrats, I don't know who's setting the policies, right? I get the feeling that Biden was a puppet for some greater forces. I get the feeling that Trump is not a puppet to anyone. So at least when I'm dealing with the Republicans, I know what I'm dealing with. I know I'm dealing with Trump, and I know that Trump is Trump. When I'm dealing with the Democrats, I know I'm dealing with a puppet, and I don't know whose puppet it is. So, I think you understand what I'm saying here, right? It feels like the Democrats are more disingenuous about there's this disconnect between the person and the party. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, and look, when you look at America, I know it's really hard to watch. It's hard for me to watch, because I grew up there, and it's a place where freedom of speech and just freedom in general, financial freedoms, I thought would always be respected. And then you look at what happened in the last 10 years, it's hard to watch. I think it has a lot to do with technology companies. I think it has a lot to do with as Elon would say, the woke mind virus that was then exported through these technologies. I think it has to do with an information war and through the weaponizing of information. Just see what they did with Kamala over the last 2 weeks. It's amazing that most of the mainstream news medias are painting this picture, and people will buy it. The Democratic Party is nothing democratic about it. It's all kind of scary. And even the technological innovation of crypto, it's the only tech innovation the U.S. hasn't led since its founding, you could argue. And it's hard to watch. It's really hard to watch. And
look,
yeah.
I immigrated. I left South Africa with the intention of going to live in the United States. And I landed up wanting to go and live a dream that I had since I was a kid. And that was to go and make it in New York, because if you can make it there, you can make it anywhere. And it's the land of opportunity. And when I went there, I was completely out of touch with US policies. And, Obama, in my mind at the time, was the most amazing president. He was charismatic. He had amazing policies, or so it seemed. And I wasn't involved in US politics in the least. All I knew is there was a guy called Jay Clayton, who was the head of the SEC, and he didn't like crypto very much until the day that he left. Ironically, the day after he left, he seems to have gone full bull crypto, right? Anyway, my experience of living in the United States was I went and lived in a Democrat state. I went and lived in a blue state. And to be honest, it was the worst 2 years of my life. I lived in New York for 2 years, absolutely the worst years of my life. Why? I'm an entrepreneur. I probably represent everything that America needs to be and promises to be, right? I'm about freedom of speech, freedom of expression, the ability to try new things and to flourish, the epitome of capitalism. I am the ultimate capitalist. I believe that the whole world should be run by capitalists. I landed up in New York, where Hollywood, the marketing machine, led me to believe that it's the land of opportunity. It's the land where people like me will thrive. I was faced with exactly the opposite. In fact, I was faced with socialism, nothing less than socialism. Why? It is a country where it was a city, but it represented the whole country. It is a country where there are extremely high, prohibitively high taxes. There are prohibitively high licenses, registrations, permissions that are required to do anything that you want to do. If anything, it is, I would say, the opposite of the land of the free. You know, if you want to do crypto, well, you can't. You need a bit license. Can you get a bit license? No, it's impossible. Okay, let's forget about crypto. You want to do real estate? You got to get a license. Can you get a license? Well, yes. Who are you paying? How much are you paying? Every move that you make in New York, whether you open a restaurant or whether you open a barber store, you need to get a license. You need to pay taxes. There are things that you can't do and you can. I'll give you an example. When COVID happened, I was the ultimate entrepreneur. And what did I do? I launched a company that does digital fever screening at corporate offices to stop the spread of COVID. My company was stopped by the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration. Why was the company stopped by the Food and Drug Administration? Because we were taking people's temperatures without FDA-approved thermometers. Can you tell me why the Food and Drug Administration has to approve an outside thermometer, something that doesn't go into your mouth? It's a digital thermometer that scans you from a intercom. Okay? But I'm just trying to show you that there was so much bureaucracy in place that it was absolutely, absolutely impossible for me as an entrepreneur to operate. In crypto, I didn't know what was legal and what wasn't until eventually I stopped operating. In the next business, which I launched, which lasted a couple of months, all I was doing was trying to help curb the pandemic. How was I doing it? By taking people's temperatures exogenously. So it wasn't happening inside your body. Why was the business unsuccessful? Because the FDA didn't approve the way in which I was taking people's temperatures. Okay, that's not the land of the free. That's not the land of opportunity. That's not the land of capitalism. That is a highly, highly over-bureaucratic, over-licensed society. And that is what I experienced. Now, I then wanted to move to LA because when the pandemic came, New York was the worst place in the world to be. And eventually I made a decision with my wife to actually move to Miami. Lived in Miami for a couple of months, realized Miami is the exact opposite. You can operate in Miami. There's not so many laws in Miami. There's a whole lot less licenses in Miami, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm saying like this dream that the Hollywood marketing machine sends you about the land of the free and the land of opportunity, it's garbage. It's not. In fact, I have more freedom and more opportunity in South Africa, to be honest. And to be honest, I'm not touting South Africa because South Africa is a little country in the bottom of Africa. I'm just saying that don't think that the US is the land of the free and the land of opportunity. It's not. It used to be many, many years ago, but it's now on a downward trajectory. And if we get another 4 years of Kamala Harris, from a socialist point of view, I'm sure that there's many, many, many advantages to the majority of people. And she's already started speaking like that. But from a land of the free, land of opportunity, no, sorry, it's not.
Is that new place the Middle East? Is that new place Dubai?
Look, Dubai also has Dubai is very smart because Dubai realized, like many other jurisdictions, that the way to win is to attract brain power and money, right? So usually, not always, but usually they come together. So when you attract the brain power, the money comes with it because the brain power usually holds a lot of the money, right? Dubai was very smart. And they said, look, we will sell our soul. Because remember, many years ago, non-married couples were not allowed to live together in Dubai. And now today you can pretty much party in a bikini on a beach with your girlfriend and 3 prostitutes, if you like, right? So Dubai sold its soul to get people to come in and invest in Dubai. Now, Dubai has also got a lot of licensing, of course, and a lot of bureaucracy, but it's much less than the United States. So I think, yes, Dubai is one place. Europe, certain places in Europe, Lisbon, for example, Portugal, is attracting a lot of people. So I think the world is starting to split between countries that are on the decline and countries that are on the increase. I think anyone will tell you, Democrat, Republican, I think anyone will tell you that the US is definitely on the decline. I think most people will tell you that in the last 2 to 3 years, London or the UK is on the decline. Like, I hate to say it because I'm a UK citizen, I'm a UK passport holder. But I think most people will tell you that the UK is on the decline. I think most people will agree that Saudi Arabia, Dubai, Qatar, are very, very, very much on the up. I think most people will tell you that Portugal is very, very, very much on the up, right? So I think that's, I mean, we're just talking about the consensus trades. But it seems like the world is really splitting between countries that are on the down and countries that are on the up. And I think that unfortunately, and I say unfortunately because I really want the US to win. I think it's in our best interest, in everybody's best interest, that the US wins. Because if the US doesn't win, then who does win can be China. Who does win can be Russia. I think a great example of a country on the up, India. Like you want to take a country that's, that is really, really, really on the up. India is like one of those countries where 10 years ago, India was nowhere. Look at India 10 years later. I don't agree with all their policies, but you cannot deny that is a country which can be a superpower. So I say that I really want the US to win because I'm Western in my culture. And because I'm Western in my culture, even though I don't agree with a lot of the US policies, it's the one that I relate to most. I relate more to the US than I relate to Russia, or I relate much more to the US than I relate to China. And so I think it's in our best interest that the US wins, because the alternative is, a Russian-ruled world or a Chinese-ruled world. I say ruled, obviously not ruled. I don't mean ruled by in the sense of that they're going to colonize every nation, but I mean they're going to influence. If Ray Dalio is right, and it's the end of the US empire, then the question is, well, whose empire is it next? Is it BRICS, which is Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and then of course Saudi Arabia and a whole lot of others? Who is it? Let me give you another example of a country that's very much on the up. Argentina. Argentina can be a powerhouse, and it seems like under the extreme right wing of Javier Milei, we actually could see Argentina hit its heyday again, and that's exciting to watch. But then the US, and to be honest, the UK, like London, let's talk about London. It just feels like down, bad. I don't know if
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. And I get to spend a lot of time in Dubai. I spent kind of 2-3 months there in the early part of the year, and I came back. And also running for mayor, I get to dive into transportation system, national health, and just see all the stats. And I mean, it's shocking. It is in decline. It just is. And the safety and all of the other issues, it's night and day between the two.
Name one thing that New York has that Dubai doesn't have better. Name one thing to me. In the old days, you could have said the justice system. So the proponents for the US versus Dubai, what they would say is Dubai is great, but Dubai has a very stringent, non-fair justice system, right? And that you could have said. But then you look at a case like Trump, and you look at how they treated Trump, and then you say, are you really trying to tell me that the justice system in New York is fair after seeing what the world saw around the Trump case? Well, hold on. Honestly, Dubai has better restaurants. Okay, Dubai has better restaurants. Dubai has way better hotels. Like way, way, way better hotels. Dubai has way less traffic. Dubai has, I think, way hungrier people. Like the energy that I used to have feel when I was in New York, where you used to jump from meeting to meeting, and in the meetings it was productive, and you were dealing with high caliber, hungry people, has been replaced. In New York, all you're dealing with is accountants and lawyers, because every transaction, you need a team of fucking lawyers to navigate what you're allowed to do and what you're not allowed to do. I don't feel that way when I navigate in Dubai. The law is simple. It's straightforward to the point. Yes, there is a law. It's you got to respect it to the point. You don't need 10,000 accountants and lawyers before you do every single tiny transaction. You don't need to waste that money. Anyway, rant over. So we
I always try to describe Dubai to people. I say, if when you look around Dubai, I said, you don't see anybody that's phoning it in. Like everybody is there intentionally. And you could say, oh, this person's not being treated very well. Okay, they traveled from their country to be in Dubai because it's a better place for them. And everyone is hustling to some extent to build a better version of themselves. When I look in London, you go to New York City, you look around, I would say 1 in 3 people is phoning it in. They don't want to be there. They're collecting a check. They're na. And it's just a sea of parts of mediocrity. And being around that vibe, like you explained, it definitely pulls you up. And I notice it when I'm there. And and then people say, oh, Brian, you don't have freedom of speech there. And I laugh out loud because my stuff was being censored by the regulator in London back in 2020. Our technology companies that are Western based are censoring my free speech. So I laugh out loud when they say, oh, you don't have that elsewhere. So yeah, I have to agree with the things you're saying. And it's great to see it as a parallel world. I don't think it's going to change over the next 10 or 20 years. But yeah, these democracies kind of walk around like they're holier than thou, but they kind of need to look in the mirror. I want to ask you a couple questions because you also noticed or made the notice that when you were at the Bitcoin conference, it was crazy to see like BlackRock there. Obviously, we've seen them push and maybe even get through the Bitcoin ETF. Then we saw the Ethereum ETF land, which I know you're super bullish on, and you think that's a bigger moment than people are making a big deal of. And now there's a rumor of the Solana ETF. Can you talk about those big TradFi institutions and these ETFs? And do you think they're a much bigger deal than people are even giving them credit for?
Sure. Today, someone asked me a question. They said, is Bitcoin a correlated asset or not a correlated asset? What do you think I answered?
You said, well, I know you think it's going to catch up with the NASDAQ, and so it's not as correlated.
The answer is we don't know. And the reason why we don't know is because when people talk about correlated or non-correlated assets, they don't mean in 200 days or 300 days. They mean in the last 100 years or 50 years or 70 years, have the two asset classes actually moved together or not together? That's really, when people talk about gold being a non-correlated asset or like people talk about that in the context of 50 years of history. Now, people say to me, okay, but you've got 10 years of history on Bitcoin. No, I don't. I have 10 years of which the first 7 to 8 years were a bunch of geeks buying up a minimal supply of this thing because it was very, very, very difficult, if not impossible, to get your hands onto Bitcoin, right? The real test for whether Bitcoin is correlated or uncorrelated is when real capital, not our small little monkey capital that we've got in the crypto community. We're talking about not a $1 trillion asset class. I mean, trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars of assets. The real test to see whether something is correlated or not correlated is when the institutional capital can move in and out freely without massive barriers of moving Bitcoin around and stuff like that. Do the asset classes move together? So I think when you're talking about the ETF, we only really now seeing the birth of Bitcoin as an investable asset. Yes, I know we've had fun and we had a great advantage because we all bought it. We all bought Bitcoin before it was an investable asset. But the real measurements, tests, etc., for whether or not Bitcoin is any kind of investment asset is now. And so far, I think it's doing pretty well. And it's the best performing ETF of all time. We've got over $20 billion of net inflows since January in 6 months or 7 months. Holy shit. So far, it's doing really, really, really fucking good. Right? So that's the real test.
What about Ethereum ETF?
Same thing. Like in the long term, I think Wall Street is going to be more excited by the ETH ETF. I say long term, in 10 years, I think Wall Street are going to be more excited about the ETH ETF. Why? ETH is technology. The more apps that you build in it, the bigger the ecosystem grows. ETH is the new internet. And Wall Street understands technology. They understand the internet. Their metrics are geared up for you talk about gold valuation models. There's like probably a handful of them, of which like the stock to flow is probably one of the most prominent ones. How many technology valuation metrics are there? Lifetime per customer, average cost of acquisition per customer. But Wall Street understands tech. ETH is a tech ETF. Bitcoin is a digital gold ETF, which is a store of value ETF, which is pretty linear. The gold market is a $12 trillion market at the moment, market cap. Let's say maybe more. I haven't checked recently, but you're talking about a $12 trillion market cap. The technology market is so much bigger than that, that you can't compare it. And so I think in time, and when I say time, like my time frames, as you've realized, I'm thinking about this from a very macro point of view. Like, I'm thinking like ETH is probably, on a risk-adjusted basis, I would say probably ETH is the asymmetric bet at the moment. So like my focus right now, if you're looking at a 10-year time horizon or a 5-year time horizon, ETH.
Now, based on what you just said, what does that make Solana? And when do you think that ETF will be approved in America?
I think a lot of it depends on the outcome of the elections. I think Donald Trump gets into power, we get a Solana ETF before May next year. If not, if the Democrats are in power, it could take a long time. I mean, BlackRock hasn't even filed. No real reputable organization other than a Van Eck has filed for a Solana ETF. The race for the Solana ETF hasn't even started. Let's just put it like that way. So what I think it means for Solana, I think Solana from a technological point of view right now, from a, again, risk-adjusted point of view, Solana is better than ETH, which is better than Bitcoin in terms of risk-adjusted returns. I'm not saying that the ETH asset is better than the Bitcoin asset. I'm not getting into that discussion. We can get into it, but this is not that discussion. You're talking to me about investment returns based on the investment public buying. Solana better than ETH, ETH better than Bitcoin.
What else do you like? What else is in your portfolio? Are you a DeFi fan, a DePIN fan, a gaming fan?
I see it very different. I think everything we're building is DeFi, because what is DeFi? Decentralized finance. What is decentralized finance? It is, well, to me, everything we do in blockchain is decentralized finance. Bitcoin is peer-to-peer money transfer or peer-to-peer value transfer, big and small. That is decentralized finance. Let me ask you a question. Memes. Are memes decentralized finance? To me, they are. Why? Because memes are the creation of value out of the attention economy and the immediate trading of that value. Now, when you talk about decentralized finance, that is exactly what decentralized finance is. So I think when you say, are you a DeFi fan? I kind of say everything that we do in blockchain is DeFi, because we are creating value and trading value across the globe at the speed of sound with no cost. That is exactly what decentralized finance is. So DeFi, I'm bullish on blockchain. Generally, my investment thesis is L1s are super important. So ETH, Solana, maybe there's going to be one challenger L1. I said, okay, maybe Sui is that L1. I don't know. Maybe not. Who knows? I like Sui, but that doesn't mean that you need to like Sui. I think the L1 problem is, for all intents and purposes, solved. Like between Solana, Sui, ETH, and its L2s, which you can call L1s, let's just call it base layer. I think the L1 problem is pretty much solved. And to be honest, like backing new L1s is probably not the smartest strategy in the world at the moment. Now we're moving into the application layer. So, you mentioned DePIN. I like DePIN. I think that it's going to be a long time before DePIN replaces centralized physical infrastructure. I think we're building the building blocks, but it's going to be a long time before Render replaces NVIDIA or I don't know, AWS or whatever you want to call it. But I think we're putting together the right models, and I think that these things are going to work. Personally, I think that if you break blockchain down to its finest form, which is just the transfer of value from point A to point B and the speculate and DeFi, then you've got to try and get into the applications that make the most sense. Exchanges, perpetuals exchanges, because I don't care what the value is. I don't care whether the value is an NFT, a meme coin. I couldn't give a shit what the value is. I know people are going to trade the token, right? Because whether the value is a meme coin or the value is an NFT or the value is a utility token, I know people are going to trade it. Therefore, my thesis is always hold the DEXs. I also know that people are always going to take leverage. So always hold the derivatives platform, because that people are going to trade people want dopamine, right? So because you know that's going to happen, always hold the thing. Then the rest of it is like pretty much have fun. So like if 80% of your investment thesis is in L1 plus exchanges, derivatives exchanges plus exchanges, then the other 10, 20% can be in Deepin, it can be in meme coins. Who gives a shit? Just be in the stuff that makes the most fun. And if you're trading something, remember that crypto comes in waves, and the hot narratives today aren't going to be the hot narratives tomorrow. So have the foresight to get out of meme coins before it's too late. That's pretty much how I see the investment thesis. You can get deeper. But I just think that the risk return on effort and return on investment of going deeper and trying to find more opportunity in crypto is not worth it. So like, you can go and look for, I don't know, the identity layer in Solana, but why? Just buy Solana, buy the L1 and have 10 to 20% on meme coins and fun. And that for me is optimal time versus time, effort, investment allocation versus return. I mean, are you going to double or triple or quadruple your investment return by finding that one gem in that one niche industry that nobody's looking at? Probably not. Like, honestly, probably not. Rather just buy the best game or gaming studio, buy the best meme coin, buy the best Deepin project, put 20% of your cash into those and put 80% of your cash into the L1 and the trading mechanisms on the L1 and spend the rest of the time with your family and on the beach. Like, honestly.
You mentioned games. Do you think games will bring the next billion users into blockchain? We're seeing also some very good AAA games now coming out. Do you think that is the narrative, or is it going to be something like meme coins or something else that bring people in?
I'm going to give you a very controversial stance here.
I would expect nothing less, Ran.
Again, why are we in blockchain? We are in blockchain because we want to create and trade value. Now, the problem with these games is that the value trading and accumulation element of it is such a small part of the game, right? That it's 90% Web 2 and 10% Web 3. What I mean by 90% Web 2 and 10% Web 3, the games are all Web 2 games. And they bring in a Web 3 element where in the Web 2 game, you didn't own the sword and you didn't own the outfit. And in the Web 3 game, you do own the sword and own the outfit, and you can therefore trade it. So it's 90% a Web 2 game and 10% a Web 3 element. That's the problem, right? So do I think that games can bring in the next billion users into crypto? 100% yes. But I think that the industry is attacking it in the very wrong paradigm. The games that are going to bring the next 100 million people into blockchain are not the same type of games that are being played in Web 2 with a 10% Web 3 component. I think we have to redefine gaming. Now, Ton did this in a way, but not really, but kind of, in creating tap games. Tap, 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 Hamster Combat, Notcoin. That's like, they've taken the first step in the right direction. That's it. The first tiny, tiny, tiny step in the right direction. But every other game that I've seen, unfortunately, what they're trying to do is they're trying to take a Web 2 gaming paradigm, bring it into Web 3, and add in a Web 3 component to it. And then the problem is that the game's not as fun as it was in Web 2, and it doesn't give you the dopamine hit. Blockchain is about trading value, and people enjoy trading value because it gives them a dopamine hit. And it gives them a dopamine hit because there's a feedback loop in your brain, which when you say something is going to go up, and when you participate in the community and it actually does go up in your brain, it's a feedback mechanism that says, I am successful. The more successful you are, the more motivated you are. The more successful you are, the more motivated you are. It's a virtuous cycle that happens in your head. The Web3 gaming narrative hasn't been able to trigger. Brian, why are you in blockchain? Because number go up. Simple. Like, you are, yes, of course we like the tech, but we like the tech because number go up. If you invested in blockchain and number went down, you wouldn't like the tick. No matter how libertarian it was and how much if you invested and number went down, you would hate it.
To continue watching the rest of the episode for free, visit our website londonreal.tv or click the link in the description below.
What the London Real Investment Club actually does for you, it gives you the keys to open that door to the inside deals. In the last 3 weeks, I've participated in 3 incredible deals: a layer 2 Bitcoin protocol, an incredible AI protocol. The deal flow is beyond what I expected. I don't think I've ever seen a model like this that just gives average folks the opportunity to be behind the deals, and that's exactly what we've done. Not only that, you get to hang out with Brian Rose every week, and for me, that was huge because I look at Brian as somebody who's not only an expert in the space, and I think is on the leading edge, but just the leading edge of thought with London Real and the work he's doing there. To anyone who's taking a serious look at this, I know it's a big decision. It was a big decision for me and my family, and it is one of the best decisions I've ever made. So I wish you all the best and hope you come join us.